What is up, everyone? Brian Zane here with my review of AEW's Full Gear pay-per-view that took place this past Saturday in Los Angeles. I took a couple extra days to get around to watching this one because, as I talked about in my predictions video, I had a bit of a whirlwind weekend. I was involved in 2 shows in 2 states in 2 different days, and it was quite a busy time. I was in San Francisco on Friday to help cover Chris Hero's big in-ring return against Timothy Thatcher at West Coast Pro Wrestling. What a night that was, just top to bottom, an excellent card. And then, of course, the big main event was so special to witness. And also for me on a personal level, it was really cool because I got to reconnect with a lot of familiar faces from the Bay Area, a lot of wrestling colleagues and fans I hadn't seen since prior to the pandemic. So, it was a long time coming. Great to see those faces once again. And we got a lot of great footage at the show, a lot of really cool interviews, and we can't wait to start putting this documentary together and show you all the magic that took place at the West Coast Pro Wrestling show. And then, of course, Saturday was we were back in Eugene to work on POW Pro Wrestling, and again, that was a wild night. A great time was had in downtown Eugene, and now I'm finally caught up on Full Gear, so I'm going to give you my thoughts on it. The show began with a replay of what happened on 0 Hour, where MJF and Samoa Joe retained the ROH tag titles, but then afterward the Guns brutalized MJF's leg and put him out of action. They carted him off on an ambulance, and Adam Cole is actually physically there this week, and you can hear MJF telling him, "Don't let them take my title," and now Cole is in a bit of a bind here. We'll see where that thread goes as the night goes on, but first it's a trios matchup as the Patriarchy, which is the greatest name for this group ever. It's Christian Cage, Nick Wayne, and Luchasaurus taking on the team of Adam Copeland, Sting, and Darby Allin. Christian as AEW's bad dad is truly one of the feel-good stories of the year. I absolutely loved that new opening video for the Patriarchy with a countdown and all the different adjectives to describe Christian. But I was a bit bummed out because, the production, they cut away from the screen before you got to see what number 1 was. And it's not the first time that they made weird calls on what they wanted to cut to or the timing of cuts and stuff. And just in this match alone for entrances, because you had that happen, and then you have Sting and Allin and Copeland's entrances where there's the 2 bats, and then the third one's supposed to join in, but we cut to a wide shot when that third bat comes in, so you don't get to see the actual moment there, and I thought that was kind of a missed opportunity as well. But be that as it may, I loved the color coordination for the babyface team. That looked rad as hell. They were led to the ring by Ric Flair, who is now Sting's manservant until retirement next year, I guess. They also bill him as a 21-time world champion. I like that there. But it seems so superfluous to have Flair as part of this Sting reunion tour. I think I got more of a sense of why he is here by the end of this matchup, and I'll talk about that. But it just seems like, what does Flair bring to AEW that, makes them uniquely different or captivating to watch as opposed to WWE? Seems like such an anti-AEW thing, so to speak, to bring him on. But, if his energy drink company is footing the bill for most of his contract, I guess it's not a huge risk, although I do find the irony in a few weeks ago, Tony Khan was tweeting and making a crack at Vince McMahon's, allegations over the years, and then he hires Mr. Allegations himself in Ric Flair. The stars are out in LA. Ken Jeong and Steve-O in the audience. We also see Will Sasso, among others. Christian with a big dad hug with his new son, Nick Wayne. I love this dynamic. I didn't know what I was going to think about heel Nick Wayne, but I really loved his attitude in this one. It kind of reminded me of early Sammy Guevara, just this really super douchey teen energy, so disrespectful, so smarmy and everything. You just can't wait for somebody to beat him up. Darby takes one of the gnarliest looking chokeslam bumps I've ever seen on the apron by Luchasaurus. Darby finally slips away and makes a tag to Copeland, goes on a big run. He picks up Nick Wayne, throwing him onto Luchasaurus. Darby diving onto them both. Sting doing a dive as well. We had double and triple team moves by the babyfaces here. Ric Flair gets involved on the outside, gets in Cage's face. Cage with the eye poke and the big old low blow. I'm kind of surprised Flair didn't gig from that. Christian with a belt shot and it backfires. Copeland chasing Cage out of the Kia Forum, Everyone gets their moves in on Luchasaurus, and the good guys win. There's this great moment here where Darby gets on the mic and he says, "Hey everyone, this is Sting's last fucking night wrestling in this state, so you better give him his fucking respect." And Sting with this kind of look like, Darby, you shouldn't have swore, kid. But no, that was a really cool moment. You saw Sting like having a moment with his son in the front row there, and Sting getting that standing ovation as he did his woos and whatnot, and shaking Flair's hand. And that moment right there, I realized that's why Flair is part of this like journey of Sting's retirement. Like I think AEW just wants the credit of like, here's Sting and Flair doing a kind of a curtain call tour in these major markets as we get ready for Revolution and Sting's retirement. And it feels like beyond that there's maybe they're trying to do some kind of angle out of this, like for which one I'm not entirely sure. I hope it doesn't mean that Flair is going to come back and wrestle one more match against either teaming with or going against Sting at Revolution. I'm not sure how I feel about that. As far as the match itself, I give it 3.5 stars out of 5. I thought it was a relatively basic match, but it was still very entertaining. Just like fun to watch match with the characters and the stories are all really clearly defined. I love the contrast of like Christian and Copeland, where you really want to see them interact, but you don't get a whole lot in that in this one. And you get Christian kind of scampering off, living to fight another day. I am loving the patriarchy angle, like I said. But yeah, as far as openers go, it was pretty solid. And again, just the overall look of Team Babyface was choice. Tony Schiavone on stage with referee Bryce Remsburg. There is an update on the MJF situation. Out comes Jay White, who insists he's the champion now, but Tony does not have time for this shit.
Settle the hell down.
Tony announces that MJF cannot compete. The world title match has been canceled. Therefore, the new champ will be, wait a minute, out comes a one-legged Adam Cole. He says he has talked with Tony Khan and says that he will take MJF's place in the title match, injury or not. So, wait a minute. If MJF is too hurt to wrestle, then why is Adam Cole, who is in a boot and just had surgery, allowed to wrestle? That, I'm not entirely sure where the logic meets on that one. International Championship match as Orange Cassidy defends against Jon Moxley in a rematch from their big bloody battle they had at All Out in Chicago a couple of months ago. This one not quite as bloody, but still very physical in every sense of the word. Very much brawling from the get-go, that sort of intensity from these guys. Big old back rake followed by it bites a nose. Orange counters in kind. There's a lot of headbutts, which leads to Moxley bleeding. Orange with many dives to the outside. Moxley colliding with the announce desk. Moxley's back on top. There's clubbing blows. Orange comes back, gets the red drum locked in. By the way, I forgot to mention Hook was at ringside for this one, supporting Orange Cassidy. Chekhov's turnbuckle is exposed. Moxley with Orange's own kicks at one point. Moxley running headfirst into the turnbuckle and takes multiple Orange punches, 6 in all. The beach break, the cover, and the win. Orange wins, finally defeats Moxley, and retains the title in the process. I give it 4 stars out of 5. To me, I don't think it lives up quite to the first match they had at All Out, but I think that this one is still a great, a chapter in the rivalry. Like I said, it was very physical. The pace was just constant, very fast pace between the two of them. They were going all out on this one, no pun intended, and it was, I think it was a well done match. It really showed just how tough and kind of demigod-like, I guess, Moxley has become. The number of punches he took from Cassidy before even taking a knee just really showed like how hard Orange had to work to bring Moxley down. And for him to get that win back, I think is a huge deal. I was kind of convinced that he was just going to drop the belt back to Moxley and everything would kind of be as it was before he got hurt. And so for Cassidy to win here is a big deal, considering not many people have the chance to defeat Jon Moxley, let alone cleanly like he did here. Hikaru Shida defends the AEW Women's title against timeless Toni Storm, who's quickly become one of the most popular and endearing acts in AEW as of late. She comes out to the ring with Luther, who's got the shoes on a tray for later use. And the match begins. Toni Storm is tearing up a script, very Hollywood starlet of her. Shida laying into Storm's already welted and bruised chest from her match earlier in the weekend with Emi Sakura. Mariah May, by the way, looking on backstage. Storm firing back at one point with a "how dare you," which I liked. Actually, my favorite part of this matchup matchup here is Nigel McGuinness on commentary saying that she is a throwback to women like Judy Grable and Mildred Burke. And right as he says that, you get Toni with this big wind-up to one of the most ridiculous cartoon punches of the night. Storm goes to Luther the Butler, who stuffs a shoe in her trunks while she misdirects the referee with another shoe. Toni with the heel shot, but Shida kicks out. There's a big comeback by the champion. There's the kicks and the Falcon Arrow. Shida goes on the outside and beats up Luther with a kendo stick as Storm slips the metal tray into her trunks. The tray is sliding out of her ring attire and she nearly loses it. You can see her just kind of readjust it before she goes for this loaded hip attack. Aubrey can see all of this, by the way, but has to do nothing as she counts the three. Toni wins and becomes the second ever three-time women's champion, and there's Mariah May to bring her flowers. I give it 2.5 stars out of 5. I've got conflicting feelings about this matchup here. Like I said in my predictions video, I'm not sure Toni Storm with this character needs a championship. She's kind of like an attraction all to herself and doesn't really need the belt to justify it. But on the same token, I think she really could be a good champion. And we saw that when she was the interim champion after Thunder Rosa and all that. And so I think it's one of those things where she is definitely capable of it, but the character doesn't need it necessarily. So I think we'll see where the reign goes. I think that, yeah, the stuff with the ending and the tray just sticking halfway out of her shorts while she's trying to do something, it was pretty ridiculous, but it was kind of hard to like buy into it after that, let's just say. But still, you know, happy for Toni Storm to be a champion once again. We'll see where it goes, and we'll see where this storyline with her and Mariah May ends up. Renee Paquette's backstage interviewing Eddie Kingston, asking what's next, and he's thinking about the upcoming Continental Classic. He wants to up the ante for this one, says he'll put his 2 titles on the line in every match he's in with the tournament, and says the overall winner will become a Triple Crown winner with the Continental Championship. Hang on 1 minute. Another championship, and we're just going to immediately lump it in with 2 other belts? That just seems like a lot at this point. You know, they have so many championships between that and the ROH brand that they almost don't know what to do with them. And so for them to add this other belt, I guess it's, yeah, just kind of addition by subtraction or whatever. It's just we're making a Triple Crown belt, so we're making up this new belt to justify it. A 4-way ladder match for the AEW tag titles as the team of Ricky Starks and Big Bill take on FTR, LFI, and Kings of the Black Throne. It's a big action-packed, car crash sort of event from the start in this one. Big brawl to start things off. We get some ladders set up on the outside for something fun later, I'm sure. Love this moment here where Cash and Rouge both go up the ladder, stop, then go down and move the ladder aside to fight. We get big dives from Cash and Dralistico, big superplex spot onto a waiting crowd below. We get the face-off between Big Bill and Brody King, which is met with just beef chants and everyone shouting meat and all this stuff. It's very reminiscent of the Miro-Will Hobbs match we had a little while ago in that sense. Rouge showing off some Tranquilo vibes. Malachi Black using the ropes to whip a ladder into Cash's face. Where is everyone at this point, by the way? Cash hitting a pile driver onto Black on a ladder. Holy crap. Finally, everyone else makes their way back in. Ricky Starks on a big run. Rouge hits the bull's horns on the Big Bill to ladder assist. We get 3 ladders stacked aside each other for a moment, but Brody spoils that. He is a bloody mess at this point. Hits a ridiculous gonzo bomb on Dralistico onto the ladder bridge from earlier. Cash follows up with a splash onto King onto said ladder, and Cash nearly lost his balance, by the way. Bill saves his partner from falling back off the ladder. Starks knocking Cash off the top. He grabs the belt, and the champs retain. I give it 4 stars out of 5. Overall, I enjoyed the match a lot. I thought there was this, lull in this period in the middle of the matchup where it just became kind of like one-on-one matchups in the ring for a while, and then everyone else is kind of like gone, and it just seemed to drag on to the point where it became very noticeable. And then finally, once everyone's involved, you have the ladder spots and everything, then it becomes a much more entertaining spectacle. It is very much just, a match like you would expect with the ladder match with these kind of players involved. The kind of stuff we've come to expect with a few new twists thrown in, some more shocking bumps. I mean, it's kind of like it's preparing you in a way where what you see in these matches, or this match in particular, it's kind of like, oh, surprising some things, but it does not prepare you for what you're going to see later in this show. The metamorphosis is complete for Skye Blue. She goes from ball cap to crown as she and Julia Hart challenge Kris Statlander for the TBS Championship. A lot of moments in this matchup where you've got Hart and Blue exchanging like creepy looks like, ooh, are they going to do something? Like, ooh, what's going to happen? And, that dragged on a little bit in this matchup. Statlander is the bigger and stronger of the two, but the smaller ones do take her out for a while. We get this moment where we get a left-handed handshake with the two, then Julia begins attacking. So, no Coven of Witches? At one point, Julia hits her moonsault on Blue, but Statlander pulling her out of the ring mid-cover. I love when Skye rolls up the champ's body to hit Code Blue at one point. Statlander grabs Julia mid-heartless, just hucks her over, suplexes for everyone. She hits Skye with a Saturday Night Fever. Julia decks her mid-cover and covers Skye herself to get the win and get that TBS championship. I give it 3 stars out of 5. I think everyone did really good in this matchup. They tried the whole like creepy look thing, the spooky look spot a couple times too many, and you could tell it was like the posturing, like it didn't click with the fans in this one. They weren't really interested in whatever it was. It was a very too hushed a tone, I would think. But that being said, like I said, all 3 did well here. I think Kris Statlander was a very good TBS champion. I think it was a breath of fresh air when she finally came back to beat Jade Cargill for the belt. It did feel like it was a long time coming, and you do wish in hindsight maybe they could have thought about changing direction a little bit with Statlander on the shelf for so long. But her moment of winning the belt was really good, and she also had some great matches as champion. Like, she was not a slouch as a champion. I think she really helped elevate a lot of the game of the talent she had defended against. And so I'm excited, though, for the Julia Hart era now for the TBS division. Toni Schiavone is in the ring to welcome the new blockbuster signing that has been speculated about for days, ever since Tony Khan hinted about it, and it was Will Ospreay, a man who many people predicted would be the individual signing over. Yes, we'd seen him on TV and AEW and on pay-per-view in the past, but he was on loan from New Japan, never officially part of AEW until now. Big pop for him as he makes his way to the ring. He signs the contract, tells the fans to please be patient with him as he finishes up in Japan, then he'll be on the road to Revolution. I think them locking down Ospreay to a contract once his Japan deal ends up is a really smart move for AEW because they've already got that connection with him because of the prior appearances like I mentioned. No, it's not some name like a huge out of left field kind of signing some big shock name. Like I said, many people kind of called that this was going to be the outcome, and I think it's smart because Ospreay is obviously one of those very popular wrestlers. He's got these great portfolio of matches this year alone, and he comes with a lot of hype and regard from fans, from other wrestlers, and so it's a big win for AEW, I think, to have him committed to AEW and making sure WWE can't get their mitts on him. And then it's time for the Texas Death Match as Hangman Page takes on Swerve Strickland. And you know what? I will admit I was spoiled about this matchup going into it. I knew of some of the spots that were going to be in it. I hadn't seen them like in action. I saw stills and I heard about them and I knew what the outcome was going to be, but that still didn't prepare me at all for what I was going to watch in this matchup here. But first, a fun dance break with Prince Nana and a dance squad. Well, that mood is going to change real quick soon. Swerve with the Bray Wyatt-inspired attire here. I love that. Hangman hitting X to skip his entrance and jump Swerve. Hits the buckshot right off the bat. Grabs duct tape. He ties Swerve's wrists together. Out comes a staple gun. He staples his son's finger painting to Swerve's face. Swerve gushing blood, and Hangman drinks the blood. Like, whoa, again, I knew that was coming, and then just the fact that it escalated, and that was in the first, 3 minutes of the match. We got this blood drinking spot. Oh my God. How much higher and how much more ridiculous can you get from here? Oh, it gets much more ridiculous because once Swerve finally gets free of the duct tape, he starts no-selling the staples himself, and he smiles. He's bleeding so much now. The barbed wire comes into play. Page is bleeding. We get a cinder block now. Swerve with the driver onto the cinder block, then a pile driver on the barricade. Swerve hitting Page at one point with the barbed wire chair shot to the back, and the barbed wire catches Page in the face. Oh my God, that looked heinous. Powerbomb on the chair, but Page gets up. Swerve with a big bag of broken glass poured all over Page's back. A 450 onto it. What the fuck? Then it's time for barbed wire board Jones, as Taz says. Set up between two chairs. Hangman with the moonsault fall-away slam through it off the top. Nana pulling Swerve out of the ring, though, to avoid the countout. Gives him a dance buff. I loved that. Brian Cage shows up and throws Page around. He gets a table out, but Hangman fights him off. Nana with a chair. He goes to escape. Paige catches him. Nana tries to dance his way out of it, but it's no good. There's a dead eye through the table on the manager, but then Swerve clocks Paige from behind with a cinder block. Paige still stirring, Swerve grabbing a chain and choking Paige out. Hangman trying to get up at the very last second but cannot do it. Swerve mercifully wins. Yeah, that's a 5-star matchup. Come at me, you know? Yeah, it was really violent. And in a bubble, that match would not work if it were not for the context of the story, because that is what justified everything here. But knowing that made everything in this matchup feel so much more authentic between the two of them. You will make me a fan for life if you can make me truly feel something in a wrestling match in this day and age, especially if you can make me feel multiple different feelings at once, like a whole range of emotion. Because in this one, man, I was laughing, I was wincing, I was cringing, I was gasping for fear and shock. I was feeling this sense of like, oh my God, he's really going to do it, when Paige was just barely starting to rise at the very end there, and the heartbreak when he couldn't do it, and just the shock factor of what these guys were willing to put each other through and put themselves through. This was easily the most violent, like major American like wrestling match I've ever seen that I can recall, with that much blood and those kind of risks and those kind of, even the accidents and even some of the things that weren't supposed to go as planned looked like it just like, oh, that was intentional. And the way it all played into it, it was amazing. Like I said, I went into it knowing like roughly what was going to happen, but it doesn't do it justice, because watching this matchup is, Nigel McGuinness on commentary said it was evolutionary. And, meaning like you're seeing a change, a sea change in something like in the business happening here. And I don't know if that's the case per se. I don't know how many more matches like this you can get, but boy, that is a tough act to follow. That is a very high bar to set for that style of matchup. Both guys absolutely gave it. They're all. Swerve looks so good here. I did not expect him to get another win over Paige. That seems like a very bold move. But boy, if this doesn't position him as one of like the top guys in AEW now, in like wrestling, just like it, it's very, this feels like a star-making run for him right now. And this matchup, it's going to be remembered forever because it had so much going into it in terms of the story and so many balls to the wall, insane spots that still, it made you feel something, and you couldn't look away from it. Well, that's not true. My wife maybe watched half the match because she looked away from it a lot, but you get what I'm saying. In your semi-main event, Chris Jericho and Kenny Omega take on the Young Bucks. Either the Golden Jets break up faster than Y2AJ did, or the Young Bucks lose their tag title shot. I noticed how they replaced the canvas from the last match, but did not seem to wash the blood off the ropes. Good back and forth with the two teams here. The Bucks are very aggressive here. Nick kicking the steel steps into Jericho's Judas Effect arm, and that causes a bit of a gusher, a bit of a gash on his arm, and so he's bleeding the rest of the match. Omega with a tag going on a big run on the Bucks, brings Jericho back in, who hits a lion salt on both the brothers. He accidentally decks Omega, but is able to get the walls on Matt for a moment. Nick taking Jericho to Dick Kick City. He almost does it to Kenny as well, but decides not to actually, but Matt is not so conflicted. The BTE trigger to Jericho, who somehow kicks out. Jericho hitting Matt in the dick for revenge. Omega looks like he might be ready to turn on Jericho, but he actually starts hitting the Bucks with the V triggers. Matt hits Omega with his own finisher, but Omega kicks out. There's a brief moment here where Kris goes for the Judas Effect, but he gets kicked in that arm, but he turns around, hits with the other arm. Omega with the one-winged angel on Matt to win, which means the Young Bucks lose their tag title match. After the bell, the Jacksons throw a big tantrum outside the ring. Omega even tries to extend a hand, but the Bucks want none of it. I'm going to give this one 4 stars out of 5. I thought that everyone did a really good job here. I think that this isn't your typical like super high stakes, high risk, super flippy Young Bucks match, but I think that everyone kind of still carried their weight, and I think that they told a really good story with Jericho's arm. It getting busted up really added to the effect of that for sure. And yeah, I think that the storyline with the Bucks throwing the tantrum, and now you see on social media where Brandon Cutler's been posting sources close to the Young Bucks, which he would be one of those guys, you would think, saying they're taking a break from wrestling, they're taking a break from BTE and all that stuff. And it's like, it seems like it's very much hiatus to go into a full-blown heel turn, is what it feels feels like to me, but definitely setting up for an angle for some kind. But yeah, Jericho and Omega now have a tag team title shot, and the Golden Jets will continue for the time being. So now the main event is supposed to be for the AEW World Championship, Adam Cole wrestling for MJF against Jay White. And so you've got Cole coming out to the ring. He's in his street clothes. He's got the surgical boot on. He's got no tan. He's got his beard's all scruffy and everything. He's got no gear. Like, how is he supposed to fight Jay White, especially if he's on one leg? But as the match is about to begin, suddenly we hear the sound of an ambulance, and everyone knows what that means. MJF has commandeered the ambulance and has driven himself, one leg and all, back to the arena so he can have that title defense. He's visibly limping. Everyone's telling him, no, Max, you can't go on. You have to stay back. But no, Max is ever brave and heroic. What a brave booby. And now the match, as advertised, is going to happen. Jay White and MJF. Jay's really having his way with Max early in the match. And of course, the Guns outside also get their shots in while Cole can only look on. The Guns finally caught by the ref, and they're ejected to a big pop. MJF is trying to stay upright against the challenger, finally begins to fight back. He signals for the kangaroo kick, which gets a big reaction. He connects. Big MJF chant from the crowd as he comes back, hits a DDT on the floor. MJF is going to try putting Jay White on the announce table, but as soon as he places him down there, the whole table collapses. It had taken too much abuse by that point throughout the course of the night. But MJF's like, screw it, we're going to do the spot anyway. So he goes up the top rope, does the diving elbow drop onto Jay White, but there's the table's already broken. There's nothing to break his fall, so he just goes wham and just lands right on the floor. It looks ridiculous, and it seems so unnecessary, but God bless him for continuing to go through with it even after the table had collapsed. One point out of nowhere, MJF with a leaping cutter over the ropes, vaults, grabs Jay White, and they land on the floor. What the hell? Back in the ring, MJF's leg gives out again. They bring in the doctor, MJF refusing to stay down. White goes after the leg, spits at Adam Cole, and locks in the figure four. Adam Cole has a towel in his hand. MJF tells him not to throw it. Cole has the ROH tag title belt. He and Jay White fight over it. Jay clocks MJF and almost beats him, but we get a kick out. White is shoved off, collides with the referee. Remsburg is down. Cole has produced the Dynamite Diamond ring, but White steals it. Switchblade gets ready, but he gets hit right in the balls. The Guns are back in. MJF fights them off, hits Jay White with the ring, the cover, the win. MJF somehow wins and retains. I give it 3.5 stars out of 5. I will say that this crowd loved everything they saw here. It was not overkill for them, but boy, they threw everything they had in this matchup. Like every single possible, conceivable odd or obstacle that would be in front of a babyface champion. MJF hit all of those and was able to clear every single one of them. He is being booked as the single strongest entity, it would seem, in AEW, but I guess it checks out because like MJF is always bragging about having the best this or that or whatever in AEW history, so I guess it makes sense. He also has the most ridiculous, over-the-top, miraculous babyface comeback in history. There were so many points where you felt, oh, this is the part where Adam Cole is going to do, he's going to turn heel. And, oh, no, this is the point where this is the point where he's going to do it, and it doesn't happen. So, again, they're keeping that going. There's no devil payoff here. Hey, the next month's pay-per-view is called World's End, so you would imagine that would be where we'd get a big resolution now. But, it was well executed, and you got to give MJF credit for some of the stuff he was doing. There was so much just gaga in this matchup, and it was kind of ridiculous when you consider how badly MJF was seemingly too injured to go on, but still wrestles a full, complete match, and is at times able to push through the pain and run normally and everything. Jay White, a lot of people were kind of, saying doom and gloom for Jay White over this, because first off, he stole the belt that wasn't really his. There was nothing he could claim to even have the belt besides him purloining it. And then after everything was going his way, he fights MJF with one leg and all this stuff, he still ends up losing to him. It's not like the end of the world. I think Jay White's going to be fine, all told. There's going to be something for him, and I think that he and MJF worked great together. They told that story really, really well, even though it was at times bonkers in terms of like what they threw in there and how many things MJF kicked out of. There was still like this moment of, oh my God, like there was, again, the crowd being into it, I think really did help. I think there was way too many bells and whistles tacked onto this thing, because once you have all of them, where do you really go? But you can't deny the performance and the energy that these guys had, and the crowd gave it back to them. I thought it was really solid, from top to bottom. Like, Shida versus Storm was not the best match on the card, and I do still kind of question whether or not the right person truly won in that case. But I think for the rest of the card, yes, I think the right people won. I think that every match told a very distinctly different story, and I thought that they all really delivered. I think that, of course, Texas Death Match, it's going to be a long time before I forget that one. And even though the main event, for as overbooked and convoluted as it got, there were still a lot of fun moments therein. The trios match was also a lot of fun. The ladder match was wild. There was a lot of good stuff on this show, and I think, again, that Texas Death Match really elevates the whole rest of the card. And so I'm curious to see how the Continental Classic is going to shake down. You wish they would have announced more of the field a little bit earlier than, day of, as it turns out, but so it is. And then we're going to find out, how that leads into World's End, which, there's probably a lot of expectations going into that one, given the name, as to where some of these storylines might be taking us. But what did you think of Full Gear, folks? And what did you think of that match with Hangman and Swerve? I think it's one for the ages, but I want to hear what you thought. Let me know in the comments section below. Be sure to give the video a thumbs up if you like it. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't. Hit that bell icon to get all the notifications. I'm Brian Zane, and I'll see you next time.